Today's talk is walking in kingdom authority, the power of the ask. The power of the ask. And most believers don't have a problem with faith. They have a problem with identity. They have a problem with how they see themselves. They have a problem with not being able to see themselves the way God sees them. And as Marcus has said, over the last few weeks, is a lot of it's programming. A lot of it's how we've been programmed through our parents and our grandparents and our ancestry, how they programmed us. You look at, the early church where they had, people were meeting in homes and people were being saved and people were being healed and just incredible miracles were happening, right? And then what's up happening? Then they start forbidding the believers to meet in homes, and and now it tried to turn into some institutional church where they were, it was outlawed to meet in homes. And then the early believers, that move of God, the move of miracle and signs and wonders began to slow down, began to change, right? So you have this series of events that have affected our faith and our walk with God as a result of that, which ultimately changes the way we see ourselves and our identity. So when we don't know who we are, we definitely don't know what we carry. If we don't know who we are, we don't know what we carry. And when we don't know what we carry, you live beneath what God has called you to do. We live beneath it, right? We're settling for what we think we're good at, right? Whether that might be in business, wherever that is, we settle. And I think in these times right now, when, like I said, I don't know a lot about Charlie Kirk, but just the things that I was listening to, and just how he had such a strong conviction for what he believed, which ultimately ended up exposing a lot of wickedness in the world, right? So he was really clear about what his message was. He was very clear about it, as I think that we need to be clear. I mean, I have people around me that are like, they're sobbing in tears, and they didn't even know this guy. And my wife woke up on Saturday morning. She said, honey, I was aching because of his death. And then I was praying about it and praying about it. And the Lord told me the reason why you're aching is because you just lost your brother. You just lost him. You just lost somebody that was part of the family, right? So he knew what he carried. And when you get in this time where you have like all this hostility and all these things that are happening around us, we can't just allow it just for us to just continue walking the same way we're walking before. There has to be some kind of change. We have to make a change, right? I mean, if we want to make it, if we want to see change in our life, right, we need to make a change, right? It sounds basic, but what are we gonna look at the events that are happening right now? What change are we going to make? And my encouragement to you is that you would just allow God to reach your heart today over the next 10 or 15 minutes as I'm sharing this with you, because I really believe it's for the times that we're in right now. We're not ordinary. We are not ordinary human beings. Jesus didn't die for us to settle for ordinary. Jesus did not make the sacrifice of giving up his physical life on earth, right? To be brutally killed on the cross on earth for us to be ordinary. We are sons and daughters of the King of Kings. What does that mean? The King of Kings. That means he's called us to be kings and priests in the earth. That means he's called us to rule and reign through our giftings, to be a clear solution for the problem on earth. I mean, I really believe that Charlie was a solution. He was a solution. And the reason why they took him out is because he was effective in delivering as a solution. Because if he wasn't effective, they wouldn't have done that. But little did they know, now that that's done, the man, I believe, Paul and I were talking about this, I believe he was promoted. There's no greater calling than to be killed and martyred for living your purpose. And I believe that. I see that thumbs up, Ryan. I believe that. And I believe what the enemy thought was going to be effective, the enemy just, now there's just this blazing holy fire across the earth that are really going to, hopefully are going to wake up people from their slumber. You know, we're sons and daughters of the King of Kings. As kingdom warriors in the marketplace, in our families, and in society, we've been entrusted with authority. We've been trusted with authority. Let me just unpack that real quick. So when you look at the things that God has freed you of, when you look at the things that God has delivered you of, that's a great place to know your authority. That's a great place to walk in authority. So just this is not like this really like abstract message. But God has healed me of addictions. I had every addiction under the sun. I can walk in authority in that area because I've been freed there, right? God has delivered me from suicidal and depression and discouragement and disappointment. That's an easy place for me to walk in authority because I know I've been freed from there. So when you think of walking in authority, look at the places he's freed you of. And how are you extending that freedom? How does that become? That is a place of easy place of authority. And when you're more faithful in walking that out, God will begin to increase your authority. And also solutions. When has there been places where God has given you solutions for other people's problems? I have a list of times where people have come to me. They don't even know why they come to me, ask me for solutions. I start praying, and then God gives us solutions. He may give it to me, he may give it into a meeting, in our meeting, but God is giving us solutions. And let's face it, the world desperately needs kingdom warriors. The world desperately needs us to go in there, and God needs us to go in there and provide the solutions right now. The key to learning the power of the ask, guys, is acknowledging your God-given authority, right? Acknowledge the authority. So start journaling. Take some time journaling, realizing what God has freed you of. What God has freed you of. What you have witnessed in other people being freed, right? And seeking intimacy and wisdom from God, seeking intimacy with him. What does that look like? Maybe it might be just doubling the amount of time you have with him. Maybe it might be just asking him for a daily assignment, looking at your calendar and saying, Lord, do you want me to take anything off this calendar? I've had times where I knew people weren't going to show up way before the appointment time. And I had like 2 or 3 appointments that would cancel at once. And in that moment, I'd stop and say, okay, Lord, what are we doing? You just like wiped half of my calendar off. What are we doing? Right? And then lastly, kingdom solutions through surrender. Kingdom solutions through surrender. And I just, it's so hard. I have so much I want to talk about. I'm trying to stay on point. But here's the thing. You know that your intimacy and your surrender is changing when your prayers begin to change. When how you talk to God begins to change. On what you're asking God of. You know that you're growing in intimacy and in surrender when you say your prayer life begins to change. I mean, the things I pray about sometimes are like, whoa, did that come out of me? No, that was Holy Spirit speaking through me. So point number 1, acknowledge your God-given authority. Luke 10:19 says, I have given you authority to overcome all the power of the enemy. Not some of the power, all of the power of the enemy. He is giving us authority to overcome all the power of the enemy. I love that. I think it was you, Mark, the other day. It's like the devil that Jesus fought was different than the devil that we fought, right? We fought a defeated devil. Jesus was not fighting a defeated devil. He was fighting a devil that was like the power was rampant on the earth. We're fighting like a disabled enemy compared to what Jesus was fighting, you know? Romans 8:17 says, now if we are children, then we are heirs. We are heirs. So that means we're inheriting something, right? Heirs inherit something. Inheritors of God and co-heirs of Christ, right? So what have we inherited? What are we not willing to admit that we've been inherited? Maybe we're scared of the power. Maybe the power that we know that's moving through us, maybe there's a part of fear. Maybe that's the breakthrough for us today. 1 Peter 2:9 says, but you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood. Are we showing up in our families? Are we showing up in our businesses as if we are part of a royal priesthood? Are we taking time to say, okay, Lord, here's my calendar right here. What do you want to take in and off of it? What do you want to accomplish through this calendar before we take a loan application, before we write a purchase agreement? What do you want to accomplish in this? What do you want to bring bring forth here. I had one of my past clients send me a text message on Saturday. I should just read the message to you guys. The message was, let me just read it to you guys. Because I'm going to try to make humor of a dark message. But if you know Teresa, you'd laugh because I told her just how it was. She sent me a message on Saturday that says, I mean, literally, Joey, I'm going to take medication to end my life. Out of nowhere. Out of nowhere. So, hi, Joey, at 5:01. And then at 5:04, she said, I haven't talked to her in like probably about 6, 7, 8 months. Joey, I'm going to take medication to end my life. I haven't gotten it yet, but probably next week. If you want me to let you know on the day that I do it, I will. My wife looks at me and says, did you just see a ghost? I said, no, I read this message. And I'm like, whoa, what am I supposed to do in this moment? What am I supposed to do in this moment? Here's a lady I haven't talked to in months. Well, I hear that. I see that as being a cry for life. Because if somebody truly just wants to end their life, they're not going to send me a text message. Out of all people, I'm not the dude they're going to send a text message to. Because I'll crawl through the window and give a piece of my mind. What are you doing ending your life, right? They know me, out of all people. So I sent a message to her. I said, I'm going to be praying for you. I'm going to call you. And I prayed. And I told it to my family. We all sat down. There was like 8 of us, and we all began to pray. But here's a perfect example of somebody who needed what we carry. Needed what we carry. And I began to pray, and I spoke to her yesterday for about 30, 45 minutes. She was just sobbing in tears, and I told her to do some journaling, and I'm calling her the next day, and I'm calling her the next day. I have no idea how to answer a text message. You know, if we don't put ourselves in positions or allow ourselves to be put in positions that we have no idea what we're going to say or do, is that going to increase? I mean, then we're not stretching our faith. We should be put in a situation as often as possible where we have no idea what to do. We have no idea what to do. Because if we have no idea what to do, then that's going to do what? That's going to allow us to seek that intimacy that we so desperately need. Guys, the world needs you to say yes. God needs you to say yes. He really does. He either needs you or me or someone else to say yes to what he has for us. Key ideas. Authority begins with identity. We've talked about that. If you see yourself as ordinary, you'll live as ordinary, right? But if you see yourself as a co-heir with Christ, you'll act differently. You're going to show up differently. Let's look at Elon Musk. Maybe it's a bad idea, but I'll do it anyways. If you were Elon Musk's son or daughter, would you kind of show up differently? Would you show up differently in the market? You would show up differently. Well, if we're co-heirs with Christ and we're seated in heavenly places, why aren't we showing up differently? Why aren't we showing up with the expectancy that God's going to provide something for the people in front of us? I mean, a lot of us are in real estate. We're helping people make their biggest decisions of their life, but yet we're relying on our own know-how instead of, and we a lot of times we treat our customers all the same when each one of them are different, when each one of them have different needs and need different solutions, right? Your authority isn't arrogance. It's alignment with the King's will. Your authority is not arrogance. It's alignment with the King's will. You carry, and then this is one of the notes I wrote earlier was you carry authority in the areas you've been healed and delivered. We talked about that. Let me give you some action steps. I just want to do, because my prayer today as I was done writing this, I said, Lord, let's get practical. I want to get practical. I want to stop talking about 20,000 square foot views, and I want to give us action steps that we can apply this and that we can see the fruit. We could see evidence that it's going to work. So here it is. Speak it daily. Declare your authority out loud. Declare your authority out loud. I'm your child. I'm a child of God, right? I walk in authority, Lord. Where do you want me to walk in authority today, Lord? Where do you want me to walk in authority? Father, you see my meetings with these people today. Where do I walk in authority? What solution do you want me to bring? You know, just declaring that over your life every day that you're walking in authority. reminding yourself. The world calls them affirmations. I'm going to call them declarations, declaring over your life that you have authority. The shift of perspective means before meetings, calls, family decisions, remind yourself, I represent the kingdom here. I represent the kingdom here. I'm stepping in this meeting saying, I'm representing the kingdom as I walk into this room. As I'm speaking to Teresa yesterday, I represent the kingdom. And you know that when things start coming out of your mouth, that sounds so random, but man, they're landing in the hearts and minds of the people in front of you. You're speaking to them and you're watching them. They're connected. They're captivated by what's coming out of your mouth. They're not captivated by you. They're captivated by what you're carrying. Point number 2, seeking intimacy and wisdom from God. We've all heard it, but are we really truly seeking intimacy? Or does somebody give us a problem and automatically we go in our file cabinet and we grab the solution that we used last time? Because that's the easy way. That's the easy way. Or do we say, okay, Lord, here's the solution you have for me. Here's the solution I got in my mind. Are we using that, or do you have something else in mind? What do you want me to use here? Because let's face it, we get lazy, right? If somebody says they want this done, we just want to handle it we want to handle it the same way every time. I mean, where did God ever handle anything the same way? Where? Where in the Bible did I saw him do that. Oh, he did that the same way he did last time. Or was every time he handled every situation different? If we are children of God and we represent the kingdom, well, why would our behaviors, why would our strategies be nothing but repeats? If we're seeking wisdom and we're seeking guidance, then our solutions should be changing. Our solutions should be evolving. Proverbs 3:5 and 3:6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. He will make your paths straight. He will make your paths straight. So James 1:5 says, anyone who lacks in wisdom, you should ask God and it'll be given. So maybe that's the shift. Maybe the shift is, Lord, I don't want to be lazy and I don't want to solve this problem the same way I did with everyone else. Father, what do you want to do here? What are we doing here? What are we doing here? Matter of fact, Lord, if this solution I'm about to use is not the one you want me to use, shut the door. Don't allow me to use that solution. John 15:5 says, apart from me, you can do nothing. I guess we have to kind of figure out what in our area, in our lives, are we really doing nothing, right? You guys have heard me talk about this. Raising these boys have been hard for me. Because man, my laziness just wants to raise them the way my father raised them, the way my grandfather raised my dad. But that's not the way to do it, because then we're not going to have anything different. I desire to be the change in my family lineage. I desire to be the change. And how do I be the change? How do I make sure, number one, I show up on Saturday? There's my plug. I show up on Saturday with great gun and learn how to build a legacy for the family, learn how to get a framework, right? Key idea is intimacy with God is the pipeline of wisdom. Intimacy with God is the pipeline of wisdom. We can't impact the marketplace without hearing from God. We cannot impact the marketplace. Do we want to be just professionals, or do we want to know as being life changers? Do we want to make money based on works, or do we want to make money and make our livelihood based on the impact that we have in the world? Do we want just surface relationships with clients, or do we want to make them raving fans? Do we want to exhibit a level of excellence? And then they start looking at us on our social media and they start seeing, where we stand. Or we offer to pray with. I try to pray with my clients as much as possible. If I'm going to offend them, let me get it over in the beginning. Let me not wait, right? Intimacy cultivates expectancy. When you walk with God, you wake up expecting him to guide your day. Do we walk in expectancy? Do we literally get out of the bed walking in expectancy that he's going to show up? And what is our level of expectancy that he's going to show up? Because He's not going to show up in a different way. He's going to show. I mean, it was interesting. I walked in the bedroom yesterday after. I know I'm all over the place. I ended up talking with Teresa and on my way to Walmart, and I walked in the bedroom and I started crying. I was telling my wife about my time with Teresa, and I said, you know, honey, sometimes you ask for God to use you a certain way, but He never uses you the way that He's going to think He thinks you're going to. I never thought that I was going to be used the way I was. She was in a hospital bed. She's on hospice, right? And I was just when I was praying for her before I talked to her, when I was praying for her, I saw the Lord. I saw me grabbing her. It's going to sound abstract, but you got to follow me. I saw me grabbing her in the spirit and setting her on His lap. And then I felt the Lord saying, tell her to look at me. Just tell her to look at me. Like I put her on His lap, but He said, tell her to look. So I told her that. And she's sobbing. And I said, Teresa, you will never know how the Lord feels about you until you look at Him, until you make eye contact with Him, like you're making eye contact with me, Teresa. When you look at somebody in their eyes, that's when you can hear beyond your natural ears and you can hear with your spiritual ears. So my talk was telling her to just look at Him. I never thought I was going to be used that way. Talk about uncomfortable. Our prayers should be changing and evolving as our intimacy with the Lord changes and evolves. We talked about that. Let's get practical. Morning exchanges. Start every day with asking the Holy Spirit, what's the assignment today? What do you want me to do today? I see the longer I walk with the Lord, the less I want to have my calendar jam-packed because I want to have large blocks of time between appointments. So, you know, I find myself grabbing the Bible and I'll read a little bit in the middle afternoon. I have to take a break from the world and I got to do some reading. I got to do some more journaling because I want to stay in contact, right? I'm not saying that my way is the right way, but you know, Mark and I have said this before. I'm talking to me. You just happen to be here. Like I'm talking to myself. You know, I'm looking at myself right now in the Zoom. I'm not looking at you guys. I'm talking to me, right? So sometimes I just have to go and recalibrate my day because I don't want to veer off. Pause and pray before every decision or deal, or take 30 seconds to invite God into the process. Some of you guys know I'm moving up to Auburn. And I prayed probably like 30 times about that door being closed. And I'm not going to stop praying until like the 11th hour. I don't know if you guys ever heard me, but it was like, you know, I prayed before Sophie and I got married. It was like 4 a.m. The day of my wedding. I'm like, Lord, you're running out of time. You better figure this. I'm marrying this woman in the matter of like 7 hours. And I'm tapping on my what? So you're running out of time, right? Because I didn't want to get in the way of it. I was really, well, as much as I could say, I was really willing to walk away from it. But I was telling them, 4 a.m., you're running out of time. Point number 3, kingdom solutions through surrender. This is always the hard one, right? Because it's stuff we've heard before. Matthew 6:10, your kingdom will come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Do you look at your business? Do you look at your business as something that you want to affect the kingdom, to advance the kingdom? Do you see that? Are we making every honest effort to make all of our interactions with people as a person to influence, to extend, and to advance the kingdom? Are we looking at it that way? Charlie did. I mean, that guy was not, he was, like I said, I didn't know much of him, but when he was talking, he wasn't talking like it was his opinion. He was talking with conviction. He was talking with conviction. I don't think he was trying to please people. I think we spend too much time trying to please people. And I'm number one at that, especially when I'm need to deliver something or talk about something. I want everybody to feel warm and fuzzy. No, that's not, God wasn't walking around making everybody feel warm and fuzzy. Ephesians 2:10. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works. Do we look at it that way? Are we showing up that way? Romans 12:2, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed, right? Be transformed. Is our work transformative? Is our work transformative? When we're done working with the client, do we feel like, do they feel as if that was a breath of fresh air working with us, right? Do they feel like we have taught them something, how we've led them down a path, maybe in a way that they've never been led before? Are we causing them to see things differently? Are we causing them to see things differently? Or are we just going through the mundane tasks of our work? Are we saying, okay, Lord, what do you want to teach this individual? What do you want to teach the both of us? Key ideas. The world doesn't need more deals. It needs more kingdom answers. God placed you in this generation to release heaven solutions. It is no accident. I was talking to my oldest yesterday. I said, it's no accident you're born right now. It is no accident that you're born in this time, Joseph, and you're going to have to make the decision of whether or not you're going to conform to the world or whether or not you're going to allow God to renew you and keep you on the path that he has for you, not the path that I have for you. Surrender is not a weakness. It's the key to becoming a vessel for divine creativity, innovation, and leadership. Let me say that again. Surrender is not weakness. It is the key to becoming a vessel for divine creativity, innovation, and leadership. Let's get practical. Lay it down. Each week, write one area of your business, family life that you've been controlling. Write down one area that you've been controlling and then surrender to God in prayer. Celebrate Recovery is a place where people go for, hang-ups, habits, and a lot of people go there for controlling substance abuse, addiction, or whatever. I go there because I want to get rid of control. I go there to work on control. I go there to work on anger because I want to be slow to anger. And I want to learn how to let go of control. It's a big problem so I'm in a family issues group and I talk about control. These guys are all walking around me talking about things that I don't necessarily suffer from. But I believe that as you start looking at some of the tendencies and some of the things that you struggled with, it's just masking up the real issues. And for me, the real issues is I think I was drinking and doing a lot of this stuff because I couldn't control circumstances. Because we want to control circumstances, right? When we can't control circumstances, it's hard to function, right? I remember a friend of mine. We lost him due to suicide. He was sober for about 13 months, and I was ministering with him. Then he kind of disappeared, and he talked about entitlement in a way I'd never heard it before. And he said, I was talking to him about my youngest. Sometimes I feel my youngest feels entitled. And I was talking about some of the struggles that I've been dealing with him. And he looks at me and he says, you know what you're doing for your son? And I said, what? He says, you are breaking off the spirit of entitlement off of him. And you're saving him from a world of heartache. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, kids that grow up with entitlement, they grow older, they realize that the world doesn't work that way. And they have to numb themselves because they don't even know how to function normally in the world because they believed that entitlement was that the world owed them something, right? And that the world had to give them something. And it was their addictions that were because they could not cope with the fact that the world doesn't work that way. Let me just give you some action steps and we'll close here. Here's some quotes. Miles Monroe says, the greatest tragedy in life is not death, but living life without a purpose. The greatest tragedy in life is not death, but living life without a purpose. I was telling Teresa, what you don't know about Teresa, she lost her son at 20. Her only son at 20. He had a seizure and died. Never got over that. She lost her dad. Her dad was her biggest hero. She lost her dad. She called her dad her hero, and then she recently lost her husband. And now she's lost everything she has. She doesn't know how to function. And I said, Teresa, reading the Bible is not about learning. Reading the Bible is about it's about giving yourself a perspective where you can withstand the storms of life around you. God has never told us that we weren't going to have storms or heartache or pain or agony, but he promised us that he would walk through those things with us. So Teresa, I want you to walk through those things with me until you can begin walking through those things with him. Walking through the interpretations with him. You taking a pill to take your life is not going to, you're coming up with a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I want you to get right with the Lord before it's time for you to go. I want you to get right with him. You know, we could look at Teresa, or we could look at all the lives that Teresa could affect. We could look at the customers, and if we did this, if we would slow our pace down and begin to look at our walk and our work as sacred, and that we truly can change generations to come. Hundreds of years of generations could change if we would just slow down and say, Lord, what do you want to do in this human being? Miles Monroe said that his older siblings, he was the youngest one. He said, little did they know when they were feeding me and changing my diapers, little did they know, they had no idea what I was carrying. He's talking about his older kids. They had no idea what their younger brother was carrying. So what if you look at your kids or the people around you and you realize that you have no idea what they're carrying, what their anointing that they're carrying. And that very conversation, that very prayer can unlock something. It can unlock a fire in them where now they're out there and they're serving the Lord. So what if we looked at everyone around us and we said, what are these people carrying? What are my kids carrying that I need to, and when I say carrying, I mean a mantle, right? What are they carrying? What calling are they carrying? What purpose are they carrying? That God wants me to do what? Maybe just unpeel one layer. Maybe just get them to have eye contact with the Father more. C.S. Lewis said the world does not need more Christian writers. The world does not need more Christian writers. What the world needs is more writers who are Christian. This applies to every profession. What the world needs are kingdom professionals who bring heaven's solutions. Here's the challenge I have. We live in divided times. Confusion is rampant right now. But we were born in this time, in this season, and in this marketplace on purpose, with a purpose. As kingdom warriors, we must acknowledge the authority that we've been given, seek intimacy and wisdom and direction, right? And surrender to release kingdom solutions in the world. I'm most excited about my move is because I'm going to be forced to do things differently. I'm going to be forced to go to different places, to interact with different people. I'm going to be forced to build new relationships, right? But I got to be honest with you, change is scary. Yes, it's scary, right? But I'm excited because I really believe that this move in this new environment is going to give me fresh perspective. John Maxwell wrote a book called Thinking for a Change. If you haven't read it, you got to read it. He talks about a systematic way to get fresh vision and fresh revelation. It's an incredible book. I've read it 3 times. I want to read it again. Sometimes I just want to tear off the pages and eat it. It's so damn good. Authority is not about what you say. It's about what you walk in. When you walk in kingdom authority, every room you step into becomes an atmosphere of heaven. What if that was the piece? I remember one time I did a talk at the Sacramento Association of Realtors, and one of the things I do when I do my talks is I pray the night before. And I have in my mind, you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but it doesn't matter because I am crazy. I'm crazy for Christ. The night before and the morning of, I pray that angels will be at the door, and that when people walk in, an angel will be assigned to each person in the audience. And those angels will put hands over the ears of the people so they won't hear any of the defeating thoughts or the abuses of the enemy. But during that time in that room, that they'll just hear from the Lord. And I pray for freedom and I pray for breakthrough. I had a lady come from the back of the room at my product table, right? And she goes, I don't know what the heck you're doing here. But the Lord was speaking to me in the back of this room. And then the guy at the product table, Anthony, the one that I told you earlier about the entitlement piece, he starts laughing. And she goes, what are you laughing at? He goes, because that's how we roll around here, right? We never know what God is going to do. And if new things aren't being happened, if you're not being surprised about how God is moving in your work and in your efforts, then you're not pushing through, you're not pushing those solutions, or you're not bringing those solutions into the world. We should be in constant amazement how God is showing up. We should be in constant wonder and expectancy and excitement how God wants to move through you today. But that's all I gotta have for you. That's all. It's only 8:46, you know.